Thank you.
All right, folks, let's talk about this story out of Florida. As always, Florida. Here's a video of the former police chief of Biscayne Park, Florida, bragging about solving all of the burglary cases in that city.
We have a 100% clearance rate on burglary cases in the village of Biscayne Park. This is the first time that I've ever known that to happen in any department that I've ever been in. He's a great part of the reason.
Well, here's the problem. Raimundo Atesiano, he's the former police chief. His ass was lying. They actually had framed a bunch of black men for those murders. Yesterday, Raimundo was sentenced to 3 years in prison for framing the teen and others. One of the other suspects got 5 years and was deported to Haiti. The case against the teenager was dropped. See, this is what I love here. So you never hear Sheriff David Clark and all these Blue Lives Matter people talk about cases like this here.
Well, no, you're not gonna. That doesn't support the narrative. You're not gonna. But, you know, that's a case of what you do in the dark comes back to get you in the light, for real.
But see, what gets me is you frame these. First of all, you get 3 years for framing. You were the police chief. You were the police chief, and so this goes to, again, why folks in communities don't trust cops.
It also goes to why people don't vote. Because a lot of black people, particularly black men, see these incidences and don't see any resistance to it that's effective. Because even back when the Black Life Matters days, which is the most recent reaction to police brutality that got a lot of press, that didn't stop anything. As I told you many times, Roland, I travel a lot to different local communities, and there's local stories like this that don't make the national news. I don't know why some of them do and some of them don't, but there are stories of black men, particularly black boys and women as well, being murdered under the same circumstances that don't make the national news. But there's a vicious cycle here that I think we should look at. At some point, maybe on your show, Roland, we should look at the psychosocial effects of being black in this country and its and the attacks that can lead to shutdown, complacency, and disenchantment enough where people are immobilized and they won't go out and be powerful. For example, I've mentioned before, when I was in Ferguson, right after the murder of Mike Brown, which was a majority black town, I asked them when the next election was coming up, are you going to repair this white racist imbalance and make sure there's some people who are progressive and who care about black people in power? And they looked at me like I was crazy. Power? Me? So that's the issue that we don't have time to get into right now because it's not my show. But we need to break down these issues that black people are living with. For example, one more thing in terms of black men constantly being shot and what this chief took advantage of in terms of how easy it is to criminalize black people. Even Don Lemon, of all people, said that white men were the poster children for what is really terrorism in this country. Even he said that. Yet we can't get psychologically past the perpetual myth of black men being the terrorists who often wind up dead, and not white men when the cops have a gun on them. But what the final thing I want to say to make this clear is that the lack of voting that Mike Epstein suffered from and other people suffer from in this country, when black people are the ones that can take them over, is some black people going, what difference is it going to make? Mike Brown's dead, Sean Bell is dead, Trayvon is dead, Philandro is dead, this newest brother is dead. And what is, for example, the Congressional Black Caucus doing about it?
Yeah, but here's what I would say to those.
This is their perspective.
Right, but here's what I would say to those people. First of all, the cases of, like the case here, the case of individuals, all those folks you talked about, those are local cases. And see, the mistake is, this is where I keep saying where education, citizenship education matters. Because people, they're looking to the CBC, when the reality is, Congressman Bobby Scott had a bill passed that was signed by Obama that dealt with the whole issue of police accountability when it came to shooting deaths. Okay, that's all. They're very limited in that. That's federal authority. Police departments are governed by local. The problem, all the people in Ferguson, the problem there, a town 67% black, one black city council member. And I'm going, who do y'all think hired the police chief? The city council. Who hired the city manager? The city council. And so the problem is people keep thinking, oh, well, we're going to look here, here, here. No. It's right in front of you, which is why you are now seeing progressive district attorneys being elected all across the country because folks are going, oh, wait a minute, hold up. If I want to deal with mass incarceration, that member of Congress can't do a damn thing, but that district attorney is deciding what cases to try and what cases not to try. We discussed the shooting in Milwaukee just yesterday, where the DA said, oh, justified shooting because the man was seen trying to grab a gun. We get to finally see the video. He wasn't even remotely trying to grab a gun. I guarantee you that DA is going to have a target on his back in the next election when it comes to throwing his behind out. And so, so part of the problem is, folks, when you hear the phrase, when you don't know, you don't know. Mm-hmm. Ryan, that to me is an issue here, and not just black folks. There's a whole bunch of white folks, Latinos, not understanding, and I do believe, and this is also where I fault many folks on the national level. A lot of these national shows, they get so caught up in process, they're not actually explaining to people exactly how this country works, how politics works, actually connecting the dots.
Let me say that I agree with you, and as a white guy from Western Maryland who grew up with a majority white community, when I got to college, I went up to Pittsburgh, and I went down and where I went with a majority white. And when I got out into the real world, I moved to D.C. shortly after college, and I said, I just went through 4 years of college. I have no idea what the world is about. And I met some people, and they said, let me take you and have a real conversation about race, about politics. You think as a political science major, you know what you're talking about. You can think abstractly. Let me take you into my community. The day after the shooting happened, or with Freddie Gray, I told my wife, I said, I'm going down to Baltimore City. And she said, you're going to Baltimore City. I said, I need to know in my heart, I need to talk to people to understand what the hell's going on. And she said, I came back, I went not just 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, I went to the protest. And I said, I came back more enlightened, understanding, and it changed my entire perspective because I had no, I still don't know what's going on like I should as somebody who's informed inside the black community. And the more that I interact and learn, the more that I can understand these issues.
Shannon.
So, you know, we're talking about Baltimore, so it goes against some of the narrative you're saying. You've got all black folks mostly running the city.
No. It's not going against my narrative. I'm saying the same thing. That even in cities where you have all black folks who might be running something, it's still how informed are people of how these things still work. There are people who, I guarantee in Baltimore, they run up to the mayor, what do you do about this?
Yep.
Not even realizing that's a county issue.
You've got folks that are uninformed. You've got folks that, you got a whole bunch of issues, especially in cities like Baltimore. You've got folks that are uninformed, and it seems like maybe it's better to keep them that way because then they might ask the right questions. And folks that are in power don't necessarily want folks to ask the right questions.
Which is why I fundamentally believe you've got to have people who are saying, we got to take some stuff over. I do. I get people being angry and frustrated and giving up. I understand that. But if you showed me the opposite of you giving up, I'm at least going to make an attempt to try something. And that's why I was glad to see the brother, who's a Ferguson City Council member, run against Bob McCullough to become district attorney. And then he actually wins. Now you got a young brother who's a district attorney in St. Louis County who is making the decisions. And one of his first acts, he said, these 28 cops, I will not consider any cases that come from these corrupt cops. That's one of his first actions. And I would say to those young brothers, that's why you vote when you're able to see a young brother like that actually win one of those races. One of the things we also talk about, well, of course, is the issue of gerrymandering. And in Wisconsin, guess what? Republicans there trying to do the exact same thing Republicans did in North Carolina. So Scott Walker got beat, a Democratic governor. So what are Republicans in Wisconsin trying to do? Trying to strip the governor of most of his powers. Trying to keep him from fixing voter suppression. Anybody?
In Maryland, we're dealing with a case of gerrymandering now, and it wasn't the Democrats that did it. That is not a...
No, but I'm asking about this here. Literally, new guy wins, and okay, we're going to strip you the power. Come on.
Come on.
That's called being sore loser.
Well,
It's called
yeah.
it's called trying to retain power regardless
Absolutely.
of what's
By
happening
any
in the
means
material world.
Absolutely.
It's what happened in Florida and in Georgia and in Mississippi, the same dynamic. But one thing you said, Roland, that I really want to talk about is that I agree with you in most of what you said regarding the power of voting, particularly when you have the most power in the local community, can help be the architect of the politics there. I agree with you when you talk about making it intentional to, quote, grab power. Completely agree with that. But I'm also, as a person who works in social services and health and human services on a daily basis, looking at why people say, well, like the several brothers I heard recently say, oh, that ain't my business. That has nothing to do with me. Now, opposed to me just judge them, say, you stupid, you need to go vote, I engage them and go, how could you say that?
Right.
When this was in Baltimore, by the way.
Got it.
How can you say this when you're in a majority black city where you are in a position to help govern through election of what occurs here? How can you say that?
But again, that's where connecting the dots comes in. And again, the average person is walking around saying, I'm powerless. I can't
Absolutely.
do anything.
My
I
little
can't
one
change
vote
anything.
isn't
They're
going to make a
wrong.
difference.
But the reality is, and I can walk folks through what happens. Look, I use Maynard Jackson all the time in my speeches. How a one person who became mayor, how either had changed the future trajectory of the entire city and the state and generational lines of black people by his election. And again, I think we have to, again, go back to be able to connect those
Sure.
dots as well. And so
Sure.
that's one of the things, of course, we'll be doing Roland Martin Unfiltered, of course, walking folks through that, getting them to understand. Because the thing I keep saying is the election is one thing, it's after the election. So, perfect example, Mike Espy, he didn't win in Mississippi. Cindy Hyde-Smith is the senator, but she still represents you. And so this is not, well, I can't talk to Cindy Hyde-Smith. No. If you black in Mississippi, give her hell. Oh, yes. Go to her office, make an appointment, and make it perfectly clear to her that you are a constituent. The same thing if a Democrat wins, if an independent wins, a Republican wins, we are still constituents. And so we have to get people to understand we must be showing up at school board meetings, at city council meetings, at county commissioner meetings, state legislature, and Congress as well, because again, they need to understand that we actually care. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.